If you're here looking for a motivational speech or a pat on the back, telling you that hard work alone is the key to the American dream, you've come to the wrong place. We're not here to talk about what society wants you to believe. We're here to strip away the corporate jargon, the glossy charts, and the economic theories. Today, we're dissecting the beast everyone wants but few truly understand: capital. I'm going to show you why the system is rigged for money to make money, and why your hustle is actually the chain keeping you in the dark. Buckle up. This isn't a tour, it's an autopsy. Welcome to the invisible driver, where there are truths that society doesn't want you to know. To understand why you're stuck, you first have to understand the architecture of the board you're playing on. Adam Smith, the man who literally wrote the blueprint for modern economics, divided society into three core players: labor, landowners, and capital. Most of you, without even realizing it, have been funneled into the first category, labor. This is what I call the linear time curse. Look at the average American professional, maybe a software engineer in Austin or a corporate lawyer in New York. They make $200,000 a year. They drive a Tesla, but they are fundamentally poor. Why? Because their income is tied to their physical presence. 1 hour of work equals X amount of dollars. The problem is, time is a depleting asset. It is the only thing you can't recycle. You are a high-performance engine, but you are still just fuel for someone else's machine. Hard work is not a path to wealth. It is a maintenance fee for your survival. In this system, if your income doesn't scale while you sleep, you are not building a legacy. You are just decorating your cage. Do you know how they separated their income from their heartbeat? It's not about how hard they work. It's about what they own. To survive the game, you must first recognize the pieces on the board. In the eyes of the system, you are not a name or a dream. You are a function. First, there is the laborer, the person running on their own 2 feet. This isn't just the blue-collar worker in Ohio. It's the surgeon, the coder, the manager. They all share the same fatal flaw. They are selling a non-renewable resource, their pulse. Second, there is the landowner, the ones who own space. As in the 18th century when it was wheat fields. Today, it's the person collecting rent, or the company charging you for cloud storage. They don't run. They just stand still and collect a toll. But then, there is the third class, the capitalist. These are the players flying the jets. Capital is an entity that produces value without the owner's presence. It's an algorithm, a proprietary software. The system wasn't designed to be fair. It was designed to be efficient. While the laborer is trapped in a linear world, the capitalist lives in an exponential one. One man can only be in one place at a time. But $1 can work in 10 different markets, while the owner is fast asleep. The gap between the person operating the machine and the person owning the machine is no longer a crack. It's a canyon. And that canyon is widening every time the Fed prints a new dollar. Do you want to see how they use that money to bury you deeper? In the Bible, there is a haunting verse in the book of Matthew. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given. This isn't just theology or moon. It is the mathematical heartbeat of capitalism. Imagine 2 people. One has $1,000, but the other has $1 billion. If they both get a 10% return, the first person gets $100. Barely enough for a nice dinner in Miami. But the second person gets $100 million. With that $100 million, they buy the smartest AI developers from Stanford. They buy the data that predicts your next purchase. This is the invisible vacuum. Money doesn't just sit there. It acts like a black hole. While you're worried about gas prices at the pump, the top 1% are buying the dip. It is a self-perpetuating loop of dominance. But once you reach escape velocity, the friction disappears, and the system starts working for you. How do they make sure you stay just poor enough to keep working? To find out, we have to look at the credit trap. Now, let's talk about the silent heist. Most Americans worry about income tax, but they ignore the one that's actually bleeding them dry: the inflation tax. Think about your grandfather in the 1970s. He could buy a house, a car, and support a family of 4 on a single average salary. Today, you're making 6 figures, and yet your grocery bill feels like a luxury purchase. Inflation is a mechanism that transfers wealth from those who hold cash to those who hold assets. When the Fed prints trillions, your savings don't just stay still, they melt. But the system is clever, so they handed you a sedative, the credit trap. They told you that your credit score is your most valuable asset. Student loans, car payments, and that shiny titanium credit card. They've made you a prisoner of your own lifestyle. You can't quit because you owe the bank for a life you can't actually afford. If you are living on borrowed money, you are an indentured servant with a Netflix subscription. It wants you exhausted, because an exhausted person doesn't have the energy to ask why. It doesn't even need you to be happy. Do you want to know the terrifying reason why? Let's go deeper. We are raised to believe that the goal of the economy is to make us happy. That is the ultimate marketing lie. The goal of the system is not happiness. It is growth. And growth requires a very specific state of mind, constant dissatisfaction. If you were truly content with your life, your old car, and your modest home, you would stop consuming. A happy man is a dead weight to the GDP. The system needs you to be in a state of chronic scarcity, always one purchase away from being enough. This is why hustle culture is celebrated. It's why you feel guilty when you're not productive. In this machine, you are a battery, and a battery is only useful as long as it has a voltage difference. That voltage is the gap between who you are and who the advertisements say you should be. It views your burnout as a necessary side effect of efficiency. But here's the glitch they didn't account for. You can choose to stop being the fuel. How do you transition from being the fuel to being the engine? Let's lay out the blueprint for your exit. Now that you can see the bars of the cage, the question is, how do you melt them? You must stop being the fuel and start building the engine. The transition begins with the simple, brutal rule, the 20% brick. Every day, you give 80% of your energy to survive, but you must protect the remaining 20%. Use it to bake the bricks for your own castle. In the 21st century, bricks are assets that work while you sleep. Once built, these assets don't need your heartbeat. They are tiny, digital engines. Wealth in the modern age is about the percentage of your income that is decoupled from your time. If you make $2,000 a month from a system you built once, you are a capitalist. Stop identifying as a worker who earns and start identifying as an architect who builds. But you will encounter the final obstacle. It's the choice you make when you look in the mirror. We have finished our autopsy. The heart of the system is cold, efficient, and indifferent to your dreams. But here is the final truth society doesn't want you to know. The matrix has no walls, only choices. Every dollar you save, every system you build, and every hour you refuse to sell is a crack in the bars of your cage. You can continue to be a loyal cell in a machine that will replace you. Or you can start viewing the world as a chessboard. Look in the mirror tonight and ask yourself, are you the player, or are you just a piece being moved by a hand you can't see? System won't change for you. The Fed won't stop printing, and prices won't stop rising. The only variable that can change is your position. Stop running. Start building. But understanding the trap is only the first step. Escaping it requires a masterclass in the very tool the elites use. If you want to understand how the invisible driver of debt actually works, watch this next video. Welcome to the side of the awakened. The game has just begun.